Okay, so I'm just making this video just in case my my feeling good took a little dip today, so I want to make sure that that I have, just in case, I've got something for us to look at. I think this is no autofocus. Okay, well I guess that's as good as it's gonna get. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is how to use our calculator to view a scatter plot. So today we're going to talk about viewing a scatter plot, and tomorrow we're going to talk about interpreting what that scatter plot means. So today we're going to focus our attention on actually getting a scatter plot into our getting a list of bivariate data into our calculator, and from there viewing the graph of that data. That's what we're focused on today. Okay. Now, eventually we're going to get to this right here. And we may actually do this today too, but we're definitely going to do this tomorrow if we don't do it today. Definitely this bottom part right here, we're going to do that tomorrow. Okay, so we're not even going to worry about these bottom two lines. At the most, we're going to worry about these top two. All right, so first of all, as always, I would recommend clearing your calculator 2nd + 712, because we always want to make sure that we don't have any crazy nonsense in there, especially with what we're about to do right now. Okay, so the instructions here are very clear. We're going to use this set of data right here. Sorry. So we're going to start by hitting stat, which is this button right here. It's 2 to the right of alpha. And then we're going to hit enter. So you can hit enter, you can hit 1, and edit. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see a bunch of L's. And the L stands for list. So there are a bunch of lists that you could possibly do. So you have list 1, list 2, list 3. There's actually a total of 6 lists. If you don't see L1 or L2, then something has happened to your calculator, and we need to figure that. I know how to fix it, but I'm going to tell you why that happens, but it's kind of inconsistent, and I can't really figure out how to do it, so I'm going to ask you not to do what I'm about to show you. Okay, so first thing you do is you hit stat edit, and then you enter your X values into L1. Now I'll tell you, sometimes they'll give you the table looking like this. Sometimes they'll give you a sideways table. I'm going to be honest with you, because my L1 and L2 go up and down, I like to put them in a vertical table. You don't have to, but I like to. So I've been told that what they want you to do is go 50, enter, go right, 17. They want you to do it like that, but ain't nobody got time for that, so we're not going to do that. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things about how to use this. First of all, so I'm going to start entering numbers 50, 75, 100. I'm going to leave a number out on purpose because I want to show you a couple things. So I'm going to go 150, 175, 200. Okay, so there's my L1. Now I'm going to arrow right to get to L2, and I'm going to start entering those values. 17, 23, 30, 39. I'm going to enter something twice over here. I'm doing this on purpose because I want to be able to show you a couple things that we do with the calculator. Okay, so first of all, when I enter stuff into my, when I try to do a scatter plot, this is what has to be true. What has to be true is you have, what just happened here? Okay, I don't know what to say about that. You have to have the same number of L1 values as you have L2 values. And if you don't, the calculator, it's not going to work. it's gonna fail. And like, let me just show you what happens. Well, hold on, that's not going to do anything. I'll show you in a minute. If you have extra values, there's a couple of error messages that you might get. One of them is like, I think it's called dim mismatch. And like what I'm talking about is when you see error and y'all are like, there's an error, but the error says something. Dim mismatch usually means you have more L value, you have more values in one list than the other. So I'm looking at stat, and now you see I have more in one list than the other. So what you always want to do is you always want to, after you get everything entered, you want to compare. See, I have 50 and 17 are the XY combination. 75, 23, 100, 30. 150, it says 150. I have 120. It should have 125 there. So if you see how right here above delete it says insert, if you hit second delete, it'll insert a blank there for you. So if you forget to enter something, you don't have to re-enter them. You just hit second delete and it'll insert. And then I can type 125 and I'm back on track. 125, 39, 150, 45, 175, 150 should be 45 and it's not. Well, I put something extra there. Well, look at that. If I want to get rid of that, I just hit delete and it deletes it from that row. Sorry, you guys. Okay, so Now I'm going to keep going, 175, 56, 266. Now, here's something that you cannot, that I don't want you to do. So let's pretend that I had some values in L3, and I didn't want them there. Or let's say that I was trying to clear out my list. You can arrow up and hit clear, and then hit enter, and it'll clear out the entire list. If you arrow up and hit delete, it deletes the list, okay? Which is don't do that. Don't do it, okay? If you delete the list, sometimes you can get it back real fast by going to second plus 712. Just clear RAM right away. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I haven't been able to figure out like when it sticks and when it doesn't. So I don't really know, but just don't do that, okay? So again, step 1, we hit stat edit. Step 2, you enter your X values into list 1 and your Y values into list 2. So I want you to take a minute and do that yourself if you have not done so already. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, now, so I've got this data here, right? I've got my L1 and L2, and I've got this data, but like I want to be able to look at it. So how do I look at it? How do I do that? Okay, so first of all, if you hit graph, just hit graph, you're not going to see anything. I can tell I'm done graphing because you know how like when you graph, like over here in the corner, there's that little line that moves up and down? Nothing's happening. It's done graphing, but I don't see anything. So there's a couple of reasons why that might happen. The first reason why that might happen is because if you notice these X values, so my graph goes from 0 to 10 in every direction. So it goes up positive 10, down negative 10, left negative 10, right positive 10. So it's only going to go in 10 in each direction. And if I don't have something that's graphed there to show me in that field, but just for the heck of it, I'm going to add a value. Okay, so I'm going to go to the bottom of my list. I'm going to add 2, 3. Okay, so there's something that should show up, right? But I hit graph, it's still not there. Okay, the reason it's not there is because by default, this calculator is set up to graph things that you put here in Y equals. It's not set up to graph this list of data from stat. So if you want it to list that data from stat, you have to turn that data on. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is you have to turn on plot 1. We do that by going into Y equals, and you see how up here at the top there's plot 1, plot 2, plot 3? We're going to arrow up to hit plot 1 and hit enter. Now when you arrow back down, you see how plot 1 is highlighted? Now when I graph, I can see this point. Okay, now I'm going to delete that point because it's not really part of the set that I want to graph, but I just wanted you to be able to see that I can see that point. Hold on, I gotta delete. Okay, now, but now when I graph, see the rest of these points aren't in my area. Okay, so now what I want to do is, there's a couple of ways you can do this. So you can go into the window settings, and this is all in your red booklet if you want to do it this way. Okay, when we start doing domain and range, which is in the next unit after this one, so next week, we'll start actually doing, we'll start actually messing around with the window settings to be able to actually kind of practice doing domain and range. But for now, all we're going to do is we're going to hit zoom. So zoom is this button right here. We're going to hit zoom. Now, let me show you what zoom 9 is. Zoom 9 is zoom stat. And what zoom 9 does is, so you know like, well, here's an example. Okay. Here is this page right here. So this is, so imagine that this is what, okay, well, let's try to do this. That this is what was originally graphed. Okay, that looks terrible, but whatever. Okay, we need to zoom out. Okay, we need to zoom out, and we need to, so that we're focused in only on what we want to see. So so when we hit zoom 9, what zoom 9 does is it makes my window settings kind of match what my data looks like. It kind of puts a little padding around my data so that I can see, it puts a frame around it. Okay, so it zooms it in or out so that it just fits my stat data. Now by looking at this, what kind of, talk to your table group real quick, what kind of correlation do I have here? Hopefully what you and your group decided was that we have a linear positive correlation, because it's generally, again, we don't connect the dots. It's not a perfect line because we got this little dip right here, but in general, it's linear and it's going uphill. All right, so that's what I can do when I look at this. Okay, so again, I want you to, if you need to, pause. I want you to go back and follow these instructions And again, to do that first, I would clear RAM. I would do second plus 712 and clear the RAM on that one. Okay? So that's what we're going to do first. Okay? All right, now, the next thing that we're going to learn how to do, actually, I'm going to just kind of skip over here, and I'm going to tell you what to do here. It's actually really easy, but I just kind of want you to have a little practice with it. And we're going to learn how to do now is, we're going to learn how to have the calculator tell me what the equation is. So like, you know how like we have a trend line? Remember on the last the last part that you were tested on, we generated a trend line, we drew our own trend line. We're going to figure out how to, I'm going to show you how to get the calculator to make that trend line for you. Okay? So, what you're going to do, so let's say, to make a trend line, 1, you got to do all the other stuff first. Then you're going to hit stat, and then you're going to arrow right to calc, and then you're going to hit 4, which is, hold on, stat calc 4 is linreg ax plus b. Okay, now ax plus b, if you look at that, so you do stat, then you use the right arrow here, you arrow right so that calc is highlighted, and now you're going to go down to 4. Now if you notice, there's actually another linreg, a plus bx. Well, ax plus b is the one that looks like slope-intercept form. This is for something else entirely. We don't mess with that. 4 is linear regression. It's the one that we want. Okay? And then we just hit enter a bunch of times, and it gives me this. Okay? And that's kind of this. It should be basically the same thing you see here, except it doesn't show you, right now you're not seeing the r squared and the r. Okay? So, what it's giving you is it's giving you kind of like a slope-intercept form. So you remember how I told you that in other countries instead of doing mx plus b, they do ax plus b? Well, the calculator is giving us ax plus b. So what they're saying is, wherever I see an a, I'm going to plug in whatever a is equal to. And whenever I see b, I'm going to plug in whatever b is equivalent to. So if I wrote this down, I'd say y equals a, which is 0.30, let's say 33x, plus b, which is minus 1.29. And that would be the line that best fits this data. Okay, let me show you that again. I hit stat calc 9. And then when I got here, I just hit enter a bunch of times. So we can actually say to hit enter a bunch of times. You enter like literally a bunch of times. You just hit enter, 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 enter. It's like 5 times. And then it does this for you. Which is, oh, that's not it. Stat calc 4, and then we hit enter a bunch of times. Sorry about that. Okay. And then we get the same thing here. And again, the only thing that's missing is these bottom two, but we'll talk about that tomorrow. Okay. So y equals ax plus b, and then what I do is I substitute in whatever I have for a, I substitute in for a, because it's like the slope. So this is my slope, and this is my y-intercept. Now, if I take this to y equals and I enter my equation, 0.33x minus 1.29, and I hit graph, now it graphs that line of best fit, that trend line, and I can make predictions. So if I, like, let's pretend, I don't know what this data is, but let's say they said, you know, what what will be the value, what can we predict is the value of y when x is 900? Well, I can look at my table, I can hit second window, I can jump to 900, and I can say we could predict that y would be 295.71. See what I'm saying? So now we can make predictions from this data. Or if they said, you know, well, you know, what do we think the y value, what would y be when x was 10? Well, I could go to 10 and say, oh, it would be about 2. And if they said, when would y be about 15? Well, that might take some scrolling, but getting closer, closer. I'm looking at the y values now. They're getting closer and closer to 15. Right there, about 50. At about 50. I could estimate I was going to see about 15, okay? So this is how we use this. This is how we enter a scatter plot, how we use our generate our trend line, and how we use it to make predictions.